The message arrived at 7:03 p.m., and it split my life clean in two. I was standing at the stove with a wooden spoon in my hand, onions sweating down in a slick of olive oil. The smell of garlic just starting to lift and sweeten the air. The kitchen window was open to the early evening, the kind where the sky looks bruised and the cicadas tune up like they're testing microphones. The oven clock blinked 7:03 in that steady, unbothered way machines have, and my phone buzzed across the countertop, face up. The preview showed a stranger's name and one sentence that took my breath in both hands and squeezed. "Your husband is my dad." I didn't touch the phone for a long 5 seconds. The onions hissed. Somewhere in the living room, the dryer clicked off with that hollow ending thud. I turned the heat down without looking and wiped my hands on the dish towel, suddenly aware of the thin splatter of sauce on my wrist and the way my heart seemed to forget its rhythm. Then I picked up the phone. Her profile picture was a girl, 17, maybe 18, straight black hair pinned behind one ear. A slant of sunlight caught in her eyes, like she'd turned her face just enough to catch it. Her name was Jade. I remember that because I thought of green stones, pretty and hard. I opened the message thread. There wasn't anything else. No hello, no explanation, just the one line. I read it again, slow, the words looking more absurd the more familiar they became. "Your husband, my husband, Marcus." I touched the back of the chair to steady myself, the wood cool under my palm. Part of me did a quick, messy inventory of what I knew. Marcus was at his late coaching meeting for the youth team he volunteered with on Wednesday nights. Our son, Caleb, had just finished his homework, his pencil still rolling back and forth where he left it by the fruit bowl. From the hallway, I could hear him humming to himself, building something in his room out of magnets and Legos. Ordinary sounds in an ordinary house. A life lined up like books on a shelf, and one sentence that slid in and knocked them sideways. I put the spoon in the sink, turned the burner off, leaned on the counter with my hands flat, head bowed, like I was praying. "Your husband is my dad." I've always believed that the body hears the truth before the mind lets it in. My stomach went hot, then cold. I found myself remembering strange, unimportant things. Marcus's old habit of chewing the inside of his cheek when he was nervous. The way he would say, "It's handled when I asked about money." The heavy envelope that had slid from his glove compartment when I reached for a pack of tissues last month. Thick, rubber-banded cash. How he'd laughed and said it was for team uniforms. Promised to drop it by the league office. I clicked the girl's profile, mostly private, a handful of public pictures. Her holding a paper cup of cocoa with both hands, a close-up of painted nails, a cap and gown resting on a bed with a wrinkled tassel. There was a photo of a small cake with too much frosting and a candle shaped like a 1 and a 7. 17. I typed and erased twice. "Hi Jade, who is your—" Delete. "What do you mean, delete?" I settled on. "Can you tell me more?" I didn't send it. I set the phone down and kept my hands on either side of it, like it might fall if I didn't guard it. There was a feeling in my chest, like standing at the edge of a high roof, wind lifting your shirt, knowing there's no going back if you lean forward even a little. I looked around my kitchen, the way you look at things when you think you might be leaving a place. Really seeing them. The chipped rim on the blue cereal bowl we kept for good luck. The lemon plant on the windowsill that refused to die. A magnet from a beach we went to as a family 2 summers ago. One of those cheap souvenir shops with the racks of sunglasses that spin. Marcus and I have been married 10 years. We dated 4 years before that, off and on. The kind of on again, off again, that felt like gravity and choice at the same time. "You're my home," he used to say, forehead against mine. He said it last week, in fact, when I was sorting laundry, while the news murmured in the background, and the cat tried to steal socks off the pile. He said it like it was obvious, and I believed him. because I wanted to. Normal life. Set up before Jade's message. Our life was everything you could point to if someone asked you what settled looks like. I'm a middle school art teacher. My days smell like markers and clay and preteen shampoo. I wear comfortable shoes and keep a box of granola bars in my bottom desk drawer for kids who forget breakfast. I've got soft spots for awkward kids and quiet ones. My own was both once, and I've learnt the way to coax the first big idea out of a shy mouth is to sit shoulder to shoulder and draw a little yourself. Marcus works in logistics, operations manager for a company that moves everything from hospital beds to classroom chairs. He keeps lists folded in his pocket with creases sharp enough to cut, and he likes to have 3 plans for every situation. If a light bulb goes out, he's already got a spare in his hand before you can get the step stool. Planning and fixing. That's what he's good at. People lean on him like he's a wall that won't move. We live in a 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet street where people still wave from their lawns. The mailman calls me Miss Maya, though I've told him a dozen times it's just Maya. And the lady across the way waters her sidewalk like that's what will grow if she's patient enough. I leave pans of cornbread to cool on the back steps when the kitchen's too warm. And in the fall, the oaks drop acorns like marbles. Clicking along the driveway, Caleb is 9, all elbows and questions. The kind of kid who reads cereal boxes top to bottom and asks you what fortified with folic acid means while you're trying to find the car keys. He's sensitive, like milk about to scald. Watch too long and it'll surprise you. He plays shortstop because he likes being in the middle of things. On Sundays, we go to church with Marcus's mother, Miss Evelyn, who wears her perfume-like armor and sings alto from the second row. She loves Marcus with the particular ferocity of a woman who raised a boy alone and never let him see how hard it was. She's always been good to me, if a little sharp sometimes. You watch your blessings, she likes to say, tapping my wrist with her ringed finger, like she's knocking on wood. Our marriage, if I had to draw it, looked like an old oak table, scuffed, steady, a dependable place to set your elbows. We've had fights, of course. The years we were trying for Caleb and nothing took. The time I found an email from an old girlfriend asking how he'd been, and he'd answered with too much warmth. The weary arguments about money when the car died and the roof needed fixing in the same month. But we'd look at each other over the mess and stay. That was our habit. Stay. I didn't tell anyone about the cash envelope from the glove compartment because, if I'm honest, I didn't know what story it wanted to belong to yet. Marcus had explained it with that shrugging smile men use when they want you to step over something without really seeing it. Team uniforms, he said again, tapping my knee with 2 fingers before kissing the top of my head. You worry too much, baby. He squeezed my shoulder, went inside to the bathroom, left the car door open wide, and I closed it harder than I meant to. Little things, right? Not enough to be anything on their own. The extra Saturdays at the warehouse that weren't on his schedule. The new fragrance in his truck that smelled like the gum aisle, too sweet and too new. A receipt for a birthday card addressed to my daughter, folded into his wallet. He has a goddaughter, the lovely loud child of his cousin Patrice, and it could have been for her. It could have been. Mostly it was good. We cooked dinner together most nights, one of us washing dishes, while the other dried, bumping hips and bickering about music. He'd pull me close by the waist and sway in the kitchen when a slow song came on, even if the cat was meowing to be fed and the rice was burning. Dance with me, he'd say, low, and I would, thinking as I always did. This is what staying looks like. So when the message came, it didn't land in an empty place. It landed in a life that had shaped itself around the belief that the person spooning sugar into his coffee across the table from me was exactly who he said. I picked up my phone again. My fingers left a faint sheen on the glass. The onions had softened into translucence and started to catch around the edges. That sweet, bitter smell like a memory turning. I typed, "Can you tell me more?" And this time I didn't erase it. My thumb hovered over send. I looked at the door, at the hallway, at the family photos lined in a neat row. Caleb missing 2 front teeth. Me and Marcus under a rental umbrella on the beach. My hair braided, his arm brown and muscled, and easy around my shoulders. From Caleb's room came the clatter of magnets clicking together, and his soft, "Oops!" like he had startled himself. My mouth tasted like metal. My thumb pressed send. The 3 dots appeared almost immediately. Those little beads of someone else's breath. I waited, feeling the seconds like I could count them with my fingertips on the counter. Her reply came in 2 lines. "I'm Jade. I think Marcus is my father. My mom is Tanya." The name opened something in my head and let out air I didn't know I'd been storing. I knew a Tanya once. She had worked as a temp at Marcus's office, early in our dating days. All bright lip gloss and laughter that rolled like water. We went to a cookout at her apartment once. She called Marcus Marky, like it was a joke only they were in on. I sat down all at once. The chair scraped the tile. I typed, "How old are you, Jade? How do you know him?" 17. My mom told me last week. She says he knows. She says he promised to help, but never wanted me to meet you. A pot on the stove let out a soft scolding hiss. The sound pans make when they're not watched. In the front yard, a car door shut, not airs. I swallowed and felt it catch halfway down. I typed, "I need a minute. Can we meet?" And then deleted it. I typed, "Do you have proof?" And deleted that too. Because what a thing to ask a child who just said the quiet part out loud. I settled for, "I need to talk to him. Please don't message him yet. Where can I reach you?" She sent a number. Then, a beat later, a photo, not of herself, but of a scrap of paper. Marcus's name in thick black ink. The last 4 of a phone number I recognized. And a date. Back when he and I were arguing about moving in together. My skin prickled. I recognized the handwriting too. His. Before I could form the next question, the deadbolt turned. The front door opened with the particular sigh our door has when the weather is damp. "Maya," Marcus called. His voice warm, routine. I closed my eyes for a beat. My phone still warm in my palm. Marcus leaned into the doorway, one hand still on the knob, the other holding his gym bag by a strap, like it was heavier than usual. He wore that soft grey hoodie he loves, the one with a frayed cuff, and his cap was pushed back on his head. He smelled like outside, green and a little damp, and something new that was sweet and sharp, like the inside of a car wash or the gum aisle at the grocery store. "Hey, baby," he said. He always said it like the word baby had weight. He caught sight of the pan and grimaced. "You're burning the onions." I turned the burner off. "They're fine," I said, too quickly, and then softer, because Caleb's ears pick up tension like a bat. Just caramelized. Marcus slid the bag under the small entry table with his foot, kissed my forehead, and reached for a tasting spoon like he always does. His thumb brushed the back of my hand, and I saw, even if he didn't, the tiny tremor in it. He rolled the spoon between his fingers, tasted, smacked his lips. "Needs salt," he said, smiling at me like we were the only 2 people in the world who knew the recipe. There is an art to pretending, and married people are masters. I gestured to the salt. "How was the meeting?" He shrugged, poured salt like he was writing a short sentence. "Fine. We went over scheduling for the summer league. I might have to do a Saturday morning rotation for a while. You know how Coach Wilkes is. Last minute everything." I watched him sidelong. "Uh-huh." He leaned against the counter, his hip bumping the drawer so it rattled softly. "Caleb finishes homework." "Yep," I stirred. The wooden spoon knocked the side of the pan and made that satisfying hollow sound. He's building a magnet tower now. Marcus nodded toward the hallway without taking his eyes off me. You good? Mm-hmm. I glanced at his hands. There was a smudge of blue on his cuff, a faint stamp-like smear, the kind you get from balloons or ink that rubs off. You smell like spearmint, he laughed. Too big. Coach keeps some gum in his bag. Breath was kicking. In the living room, the cat leapt silently onto the arm of the couch and settled into a loaf. Eyes half closed. Marcus set his phone on the counter near him, face down. He's always been a face-up kind of person. Little things. The food came together in automatic motions. Rice fluffed, greens wilted, plates set. Caleb drifted in, put his head into his father's side like he was docking. "Dad," he said, voice muffled in Marcus's hoodie. "Want to see how high I got it?" "In a minute, little man," Marcus said, squeezing the back of his neck. "Let me eat before my blood sugar drops." "Your mom tries to starve me." Caleb made a face at me, and I mirrored it, exaggerated, like we do. Marcus grinned, relieved. He told a story over dinner about a kid at practice who spun himself silly and fell into a bag of equipment. He did the voices. He always does voices. Caleb laughed with his mouth open, showing the crisscrossing wires from his braces. I chewed and pretended the rice didn't taste like paper. "You're quiet," Marcus said, pointing his fork at me. "Long day," I said. "Clay unit, I swear my shoulders are going to harden in place." He touched my wrist. "You need to let me book you that massage." He said it like a promise, and I felt my throat thicken. Because what do you do with sweetness when you suspect it's covering something sour? After dinner, Caleb pulled his father down the hallway to show him the magnet tower, and I stood at the sink, water running hot over my hands, until my skin bloomed pink. I put the plates in the rack one by one and listened to my men. Marcus's laugh low. Caleb's rapid-fire explanations. The muffled thud of a collapse, and then, "We'll build it again." Little things in a neat column. 3 weeks ago, a receipt in the trash from a party store across town. The kind we go to only for birthdays, and not ours. Helium, ribbon, number candles, 1 and 7. I'd told myself it was for Patrice's goddaughter. Maybe it was. A new bank account login. Suggestion popped up on our shared computer. Initials that weren't mine. As if the machine had learned a pattern I hadn't. The day he came home, with a glitter stuck to the side of his neck. I brushed it off and laughed. "You been to a craft store without me," he said. Caleb's team made poster signs for the car wash. Glitter everywhere. Could be. Glitter goes everywhere. His mother's voice on the phone last month, low and strange. "You know men keep things in their pockets sometimes that weigh them down." I'd said, "Miss Evelyn," and she'd tisked. Like she'd meant to say something else, and changed her mind midstream. "You take care of your home, Maya," she'd said, and hung up. Suspicion is a slow leak at first. You don't notice until you feel the floor wet under your feet. But when you think back, you realize it started a while ago, with a sound you couldn't place. We watched a show together on the couch afterward. Some detective thing we both like. Marcus put his hand on my thigh, thumb drawing circles, like the movement of the second hand on a clock. His phone lit up face down, shaving a sliver of light along the granite edge of the counter, and he flinched almost imperceptibly. He didn't get up. The light went dark. "I'm gonna shower," he said when the credits rolled. He stood, kissed the top of my head. "You want some tea?" "No," I said. "I'm good." When the water came on behind the bathroom door, that steady hiss that's always reminded me of a kind of white noise meant to comfort infants, I moved. I don't know if I've ever moved that quietly in my own home. I slipped to the entry table and eased open his bag. Gym clothes, a towel, the old pair of indoor coaching shoes, with chalk lines on the soles. Underneath, a folded paper bag with a logo I recognized from a boutique that sells custom keychains and charms. I reached in, heart in my throat. The receipt was still tucked into the bottom. Silver charm, Initial J. Engraving, Be Brave, J. The kind of gift you buy when you don't know someone well enough to pick their taste, but want to say something meaningful. It could be for anyone. It could be. It also could not. I slid the bag back exactly how I found it, folding the corners, aligning the print with the edge. In the jacket he'd flung over the back of the chair, I found a crumpled slip from the ATM near Tanya's old apartment building, the one with the broken red O in the sign that's been blinking since before Caleb was born. I'd followed my friend there once years ago. We'd eaten tacos from the truck on the corner that puts too much lime on everything. The date on the receipt was last Friday. He'd told me traffic had held him up. I put everything back as if I could put time itself back. The bathroom door squeaked open a minute later, and he came into the kitchen, rubbing his hair with a towel, clean and warm and smelling like my shampoo. "You're still up," he said, surprised and a little pleased. "I'm not tired," I lied. My body felt like I'd been running. When we went to bed, he reached for me, and I let him, because sometimes what you need to know takes time to show itself, and rushing only makes the words come out wrong. He fell asleep hard, mouth slightly open, a wheeze I'd grown to find endearing in the quietest hours. I stared at the ceiling and thought about girls named after green stones and the way a 1 candle and a 7 stand too far apart to read as anything other than 17. In the morning, the house had that soft smell of cooled rice and lemon dish soap. I poured coffee and packed Caleb's lunch, chopped apples, peanut butter sandwich, a note folded into a square that said, "You got this, kiddo." Marcus was already dressed, his shirt crisp, his tie the one with tiny navy dots. "Don't forget you're picking him up," I said. He frowned like I'd told him a secret. "I thought we said you would." "I've got a delivery window." "We said you would." "You said your meeting was early today." He smiled without showing his teeth. "Right, I'll make it work." After they left, I stood at the window and watched them walk to the car. The way Caleb is a smaller copy of his father from behind. Marcus put his hand on the top of Caleb's head for just a second before he opened the door. I pressed my palm to the glass, felt the faint coolness. When the house was empty, I dialed the number for the youth league office. A woman named Denise, who knows every parent by their car and habit, picked up on the third ring. "Denise," I said, and pitched my voice light as a paper bag. "Marcus said the coaches' meeting ran late last night. I wanted to see if he picked up the jersey order forms." There was a pause while she typed. "No meeting yesterday, sugar. We moved it to next week because Wilkes had to take his wife to the dentist. You know how they are. I've got the forms in my drawer. Want me to send them with Marcus when I see him Saturday?" I thanked her and hung up and stood very still, my phone warm in my hand. Outside, the trash truck rattled down the street and the men called to each other over the grinding, easy and practiced, hands on the sides of the bins like dancers knowing the steps. I sat at the kitchen table. The ring from my coffee cup made a soft wet circle on the wood. I opened my messages and tapped on Jade's number. I wrote, "Can we meet? Somewhere public. I just want to hear you." The reply took less than a minute. "Yes, today after school. The library coffee shop on Maple. Maple is 2 neighborhoods over. Just far enough away that you don't run into people you know, unless fate is feeling funny." I typed 4:30. She sent back a thumbs up. Then, a beat later, "He's going to be mad." I looked at those words until my eyes blurred. I wrote, "I'm not. See you there." I put my phone down and folded my hands around the warmth of the coffee mug until my fingers started to sweat. The cat hopped onto the table and head-butted my knuckles, forgiving me for nothing in particular. The refrigerator hummed like an old friend in the next room. I stood, washed the coffee ring off the table, and then for no reason I could name, I made the bed again, smoothing the sheet until it lay flat as calm water. At 4:05, I pulled into the library lot and sat for a moment, the engine ticking as it cooled. I checked my face in the mirror, plain, tired, my mother's eyes, and told myself, don't cry yet, save it for when it matters. The air smelled faintly like rain, even though the forecast showed sun. The sky did that thing it does, where it looks like it's holding its breath. I tucked my phone into my bag, put my keys in the outside pocket so I could find them in a rush if I needed to, and stepped out of the car. When the door shut behind me, the sound was crisp and final, like the click of a lock on a jewelry box. I didn't know then how many more locks I was going to open. I just knew I was walking toward a girl in a coffee shop, whose name I'd only learned an hour before, and that whatever we said to each other inside would sort me forever into before and after. The library coffee shop hummed with that gentle, public quiet, milk steaming, pages turning, the soft thunk of a return bin swallowing books. I smelled cinnamon and printer paper. A kid in a red hoodie scribbled math in the corner. The barista wore a beanie with a pom on top that made her look like a winter ornament in April. Jade sat by the window, hands wrapped around a cup. She wasn't drinking. Sleeves pulled down over her knuckles, like she was trying to keep her pulse from spilling out. She looked up when I approached, and for a split breath, I saw my own face at that age. Heart forward, chin up. Too much braveness for such a thin frame. Jade? I said. She nodded. Maya. I slid into the chair across from her and set my purse down like it was heavy. Thank you for meeting me. Her voice was clear but soft. Thank you for answering. Up close, she had a tiny mole under her left eye and a small nick at the corner of her mouth, like she'd once bit it too hard. There was a charm at her wrist, silver, an oval with a letter J engraved in it. Be brave on the back, if I guessed right. I don't want to scare you, I said. I don't want to fight your mother. I need to understand. She nodded, eyes on her cup. That's fair. How do you know? She ran her thumbnail along the cardboard sleeve. A small rasping sound. When I turned 17, Mum told me we'd talk about my father before I went to college. She said I deserved to know. I thought it was going to be a blank, you know. He left. He's gone. I don't know. But she said his name like she'd been carrying it in her cheek so long it turned sweet and sour at the same time. She said Marcus. She said he knows. She said they were involved when they were younger, and then he chose someone else. But he kept in touch. I sat very still. The clock over the circulation desk ticked 1 second too slow. She said he comes on my birthdays sometimes. Jade continued. Or he used to, when I was little, not to the party, like later, with cash for Mom and a balloon for me in the car. She said he told her he couldn't make it public because he had another family. He gave me this when I turned 13. She turned her wrist. The charm caught the light. He said, be brave. He said it like a favor and a compliment. The words bent inside my ribcage and pushed. What did your mom want you to do with this information? She wanted me to know for me, she said. To know who I am. She said I could reach out if I wanted, but to be prepared, because grown-ups do coward things sometimes. She lifted her eyes to mine. She wanted me to wait to message you. I couldn't. I felt wrong not to. You didn't do anything wrong. I turned that over carefully. Did he ever say he'd tell me? Mum says he said, after Caleb is older, she said. Like the truth was something that needed to age, before it would be safe to touch. My mouth tasted like paper. Have you asked for a DNA test? Her shoulders rose and fell. Mom asked when I was little. He said he didn't need a test because he knew, but then he didn't want his name on anything. He said he'd help informally. He did, sometimes, not always. I work at the grocery store 2 evenings a week. It's fine. Where is he in your phone? I asked, and heard my own voice go flat. She looked away. I don't have his number. He uses different payphones, and sometimes a blocked number. He meets Mom at the ATM, by the taco truck near our old apartment. He He didn't want a trail. I thought of the receipt in the jacket pocket, the broken red O in the sign, the smell of lime and cilantro that never quite leaves your nose. When you stand near the truck too long, my stomach rolled. Okay, I said. Okay. We were quiet a beat. A librarian rolled a cart past, the books clicking gently into place as she reshelved them. Outside, a cloud moved across the sun, and the room took a breath of shade. Jade's voice was smaller when she spoke again. He told my mom he loves his wife. He said you're kind. He said you'd leave if you found out. I watched a tiny drop of condensation slide down her cup and pool at the sleeve's edge. He doesn't get to decide what I do with the truth, I said. I kept my tone calm and even, and my hands were steady on the table, even if my bones didn't feel like they belonged to me. I can't fix what grown people broke, Jade said, half to herself. No, I said. You can't, and you don't have to. That's not your job. She nodded once, like that idea fit into a tiny pocket, somewhere she'd been holding open for it. If you need, if you want, I'll do any test. I don't want anything that isn't true. We'll do it the right way, I said. For you, for me, for him, for my son. Legal chain of custody. No one can pretend later that it doesn't mean what it means. I took a breath. And Jade, if you're his child, you're Caleb's sister. That's not going to be something I let anybody erase. Her face did a small thing. Hope and grief shook hands behind her eyes. We talked logistics. There's a clinic downtown that does court-admissible tests. She had a bus pass. I offered to cover the fee. She started to refuse out of pride, then nodded. Practical winning over noble. As we stood to leave, she said, "He's going to be mad at me for telling you." He might, I said. But if he raised me to be anything, it's steady. I'm not going to yell. I'm going to make a plan. She looked at me a long moment and then hugged me, unexpectedly. She smelled like cheap vanilla perfume and rain that hadn't fallen yet. I hugged her back. There's a way you hold a girl like that. Firm enough to say you won't drop her. Loose enough to let her breathe. I don't want to paint this like a straightening ribbon. Some nights I lay in my bed alone and felt so tired my bones ached. Some mornings I watched Marcus, who had become this familiar stranger, make his coffee and wanted to throw the mug against the wall and say, "Look what you did." But I didn't. I put the mug in the sink and told the truth, again and again, to everyone who needed it, including myself. After the second month, I asked Marcus to move out, not as punishment, as clarity. He packed slowly, folded his grey hoodie, took his lists out of our drawer. He went to his mother's apartment, where the walls smelled like powder and lemon oil, and the discipline of a woman who survived on purpose. Caleb hugged him, cheeks wet. Marcus knelt and said, "I will be here. I am still your dad." I stood by the door and breathed. In and out, like someone learning to use her lungs properly. We signed papers 3 months later. Support, custody, the outlines of a life unbraided. Divorce is a word people whisper like a slur. I said it at full volume to a lawyer with a stuffed plant on her desk and a red pen in her hand. It didn't make me smaller. It made the room wider. Jade came to my classroom to volunteer during her senior project month, and I watched a second-grade boy with a stutter light up when she asked him to tell her about his drawing. "It's a dragon," he said, smooth as butter. She grinned, and I thought, "You were always going to be brave." The charm just caught up. One afternoon, I stood in my kitchen with the windows open and the lemon plant blooming like it had decided to hope again. The cat chased a fly in lazy circles. The house smelled like onions and garlic, sweet and low, and my phone lay face up on the counter, not buzzing. I looked at the blue cereal bowl with the chipped rim, at the magnet from that cheap beach with the spinning sunglasses rack, at the table where truth had sat and refused to move. I touched the back of the chair, cool wood under my palm. The way I had the night everything split and felt not broken, but open. Miss Evelyn comes over on Sundays sometimes. and she and I play cards at the table, while Caleb and Jade argue gently about the rules of baseball, and the television murmurs, without anyone needing to listen. She looks at me over her hand and says, "You watch your blessings." And this time, it doesn't sound like warning. It sounds like a way to keep count on purpose. Marcus is a father to both of his children now. Not perfect, not performative, present. He shows up to Jade's college nights with a check in the amount we agreed to, and sits quietly while she talks about dorm applications and meal plans. He comes to Caleb's games and claps at the right time. He doesn't coach. He brings his chair and his guilt and his efforts and sits in all three, and that is its own kind of consequence. I don't hate him. That surprises people. Hate is a heavy thing to keep watering. I put it down. I water my lemon tree instead. I teach children to see negative space and color value. I pay my bills and answer my phone and sleep in a bed I made myself. I stopped asking the truth to be pretty. I ask it to be honest, and then I work with what it gives me. The message that split my life in two turned out to be the thing that put me back into mine. Fully awake. Sometimes breaking is the only way you see what parts are you and what parts were wrapped around someone else's fear. At the end of it all, what I remember most is the sound of my house learning a new quiet. The clock still ticked. The cat still thumped off the windowsill. The onion and garlic still turned sweet in the pan. But I could hear my own steadiness again. Truth did not come wrapped pretty. It came like a clean, cool cloth to a fevered head, and under all the noise, it asked the simplest thing of me, be brave. I thought of Jade's silver charm, and how sometimes the words we gift to children circle back and land on the adults who needed them first. I thought of my lemon plant, stubborn and bright, and how it kept making fruit even after neglect. Some things survive on patience and a little light. I learned this. Children deserve clarity, and adults must carry the weight of their own choices. Boundaries are not punishments. They are safe fences around a life you mean to tend. Consequence is not cruelty. It is the honest twin of love. I could hold two truths in the same pair of hands. Marcus's failure and my own kindness. Jade's need and my right to protect my peace. I could say no to secrecy and yes to privacy. I could love the family we were and still open the door to the family we are. There is room for both in a steady heart. Miss Evelyn and I found a new way to speak, the kind where grief and respect can share a table. Marcus learned the quieter work of fatherhood, showing up, signing his name, standing still while the truth settles. Caleb and Jade began their practice, one magnet at a time, building and rebuilding, learning how to say heirs without stealing from anyone's mind. Not every day is gentle. Some are petty and sore. But when we fall apart a little, we try again. Practice is just love with patient shoes on. Forgiveness for me was not a ribbon I tied around a wound. It was a door I cracked for air. It did not absolve the past. It refused to let the past run my future. I forgave to hear myself think again. I forgave to sleep without standing guard over a fortress that was already empty. I kept one promise to myself above all. No more lying to me, by me, or for me. When I kept that, the rest of my life rose to meet it. If this story found you tonight, I hope it reminds you that your steadiness is a home you can return to, even after the loudest break. You do not have to hate to heal. You can set down what is heavy and still be whole. Would you have done what I did? Called the truth in, named it, and lived forward from there? If you're holding something tender, share your heart in the comments. And if these stories keep you company, subscribe, turn on notifications, and pass this along to someone who needs a steady voice. Thank you for listening, family. Be brave.